Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 95, where we will cover chapters 1 to 4 of book 10, Crossroads of Twilight. I'm your host Mo, and I'm joined at long last by my friends on the lamb, Willie.
I literally had lamb tonight for dinner.
And Jody.
Hola amigos. No lamb for me. Probably some
Willie's on the lamb cutlets. Guys, welcome back.
Yeah, it's shitballs. It's been a while.
It's been 8 weeks.
Yo.
My fault.
That's quite... It feels like it, eh? Like it's been a long time. I've missed this little song and dance we do every fortnight.
You know what I don't miss? Doing this in like the peak of summer. It's so hot. It's so sweaty.
Should I give the listeners a peek behind the curtain and let them know that both Willie and I are shirtless, sweating at it's almost 9 p.m. here in Australia, and it is hot.
That's why we don't record the video from these sessions, because
it's
we'd have no fans.
So, Joe, I already mentioned this in our schedule update, but why don't you give us a couple of highlights of what you got over, or what you got up to over the break?
Oh, yes. First off, before I forget, today is the 2nd of February, my dad's birthday. So, happy birthday, Dad.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Pete.
Yeah, I don't know, he would have been 80.
Cheers.
81. Yeah.
Wow. Jeez,
so anyway,
we're getting old as well, hey?
Went there to South Africa. Stayed with my mother and my brother. Went down to Jeffrey's. Stayed in a cool campsite with spiders the size of my hand. It was great. They loved being inside the tent as well. On your
boy.
On your door to open in the morning.
No. No.
I threw my phone at one. I was gonna hit it with the phone, but I thought that's too close to my hand, so I just chucked my phone.
And in that moment, you didn't switch to another object like a shoe or something.
There's no time.
Just the phone.
Time was of the essence. So yeah, I had a good time. Did a little road trip.
Amazing.
Yeah,
sweet.
All good stuff.
Epic. How about you, Vil?
Yeah.
You and I haven't caught up much in the time that we've been on break. So
I'm
what
the
have you been
catalyst. That's the issue.
Working.
Jody's not around.
I have not taken a break. The little break that I took between Christmas and New Year was just spent at home with the kids, man.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
You have a staycation coming up.
Holidays. Yeah. I also had a staycation.
No one asks Moritz. Sorry.
No.
So Moritz, tell us about your holiday.
That's okay. This is expected. We got a cat. It's pretty fun.
Sweet.
Pretty fun and exciting. Yeah. A little ragdoll. Chocolate point ragdoll. She's very sweet, very curious, and very audacious.
Chocolate point ragdoll. What do those words mean?
Type of cat. It means the cat's fluffy. It's got blue eyes.
Yes.
It's got little dark tippy ears. A very indoor housey cat. Come on, Jody, how do you not know these things?
Like I know all of those words individually, but in that order, it means nothing to me.
Ragdolls are like just super like floppy little, indoor house cats. And the chocolate point is she's white and she's got a chocolate nose and chocolate tips on her ears and her tail.
Cool.
Basically,
very, very sweet.
Live up to
what's
their name.
The cat's name?
Coco, because
Coco.
of the chocolate point.
Yeah, I kind of guessed that.
Yeah, very cool. I also finished Crossroads of Twilight.
I know.
You finished it. I have just started it.
Me too.
The beauty of a staycation, hey? All we did this holiday was swim in the pool, go to the beach, and read. I've even read half of another book, which is not Wheel of Time. Shock. Horror.
What? Oh, look what I got on my desk.
Flowers for Algernon. Ooh.
You remember that?
I do. I feel like we read an abridged version of that at school because it was sort of lumped in with a bunch of short stories, but that's a proper novel. Yeah.
I remember we had to do this in high school, and I saw it in South Africa and just bought it. Christina's already read
classic.
it. Yeah. It's like one of those books that lives with me forever. Like, and defined your growth, as a child. Your reading growth, Was that and
Also
The
a
Outsiders.
tearjerker.
You remember The Outsiders?
I don't remember The Outsiders.
S.E. Hinton? About those 1950s, like Grease Lightning kind of style guys, these kids that get in, like, accidentally kill another kid in a fight and they have to go on the lam and hide out. The cops are after them. Pony Boy.
Jeez, no. Nope, never read it.
They made a movie about it.
No.
Wow. That was a cultural defining moment. You missed it, Mr. Train Moritz. Okay. Anyway, so there are other books is what I'm trying to suggest to our readers.
In other genres, I'm sticking with fantasy. I'm reading The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb.
Wow.
It's very good.
No, for sure. No doubt. I was just talking to Christina last night about what are we going to do after we finish this massive undertaking of the Wheel of Time. Like, are we going to carry on podcasting? Are we going to do other books? I was like,
I don't know.
Can we just cross the line first before we shock me into...
Yeah. Easy now. I was thinking of maybe a book club, like podcast. And then we read little books like Flowers for Algernon and stuff because I don't know if I could do another 14 million word epic.
No.
I'm done, eh?
Not immediately after this one anyway. Maybe one day.
Yeah, who knows?
So look, one thing I can say after reading the entirety of Crossroads of Twilight is I've got good news and bad news.
Oh dear.
Which do you want first?
Bad. Hit me with a bad. Yes.
The bad news is you are probably going to disagree with my next statement.
Here we
The
go.
good news and the statement you're going to disagree with is the slog is dead. There's no slog. It doesn't exist. Already debunked for me anyway for book 8 and 9, and now having finished Crossroads of Twilight, it's no Shadow Rising, it's not the high point of the series by any stretch of the imagination, but it was certainly not as onerous as I had built it up to be in my head. I'm so relieved and pleasantly surprised.
Sweet. Why would I disagree with that?
The only thing that I can put this down
Wait till you
to
finish the book.
is that you've got the Januaries where you're all upbeat and positive about your project at work. It's like the teacher in front of the class, first day of school. It's going to be great. And by the end of this day, you're going to cry because we've told you how terrible this is. Oh, scheisse. And how bad that is. And this is just infuriating.
The only flaw with that theory, Vil, is that I had already assumed that posture when we dealt with the prologue, which, you guys made very clear you did not like at all. And we've got quite a few listener contributions commenting on the same content.
We stir the pot.
Very much so. But I certainly, I was not excited about the prologue, but I got a lot of value out of it. And then after reading this book, I think it is totally fine. And I quite enjoyed the vast majority of it. I don't know if you guys will agree. By the time we finish it, Joe, you might disagree with my statement about the slug. The one thing that I've always sort of said about the Andorran politics and how hectic it is, it's super concentrated. It's a couple chapters in the middle, and it's not as bad as I thought it was. I always blew it up in my mind as spoiling the whole book, but not even close. But let's forge ahead.
Just one thing on that. I read
yes.
my chapters yesterday after being off for 2 months. Never found the moment to read. And I remember enjoying it. I even when I closed the book, said to Christina at the computer, this was amazing. I really enjoyed that chapter. And I was not, as I was thinking it's a chore to read this book as I sat down to it. But then when you get going, it's like, oh, that was fun.
Oh, this is cool. Hang on. This is pretty great. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a way to start.
It's these chapters, so it will come up again.
Yes, it is. We will talk about it very soon.
Anyway, just...
But before we can talk about it, we have to swing back to everyone's favorite prologue in everyone's favorite section called callbacks.
No.
All right, so we obviously spoke a lot about the prologue and how we all felt about it, both back in the day and recently. What we thought about it back in the day and what we thought about it recently.
Last year.
Yes. Vil, you kept saying it's 89 pages, but I went and I checked, it's definitely 80 pages. Okay, so here's some facts about the prologue. Here, Mo's going to hit you with some pedantry and some facts about the prologue. 80 pages. The whole book is 683 pages, at least in the paperback copy that I have, which means the prologue is just shy of 12% of the entire book. It's just the prologue. So, I mean, it is, I'm not going to argue with this fact, big and chunky and not as exciting as you guys might have hoped. So I thought I'd hold it up against the other prologues, right? Like some, if not all of the books, most of the other books have prologues. So Dragonmount obviously is the prologue of book 1, 7 pages.
7 pages. Do you have it in percentages?
I don't have it in percentages, but I mean the books are, within 100 or so pages of each other.
Then
generally,
you came with a statement, a banner of facts and hitting.
Yeah.
It was almost like a political speech, and you don't have percentages. You're off to a bad start.
You have a whiteboard behind you, and there's no graph. Like, I don't know, man.
That's all work.
These opportunities are right in front of you.
All I have, I'm sorry for dropping the ball. All I have is for every single book in the series thus far, how many pages they are and how many points of view they cover. So let me rattle them off quick. Dragonmount from Eye of the World is only 7 pages, 1 point of view, obviously Lews Therin. In The Great Hunt, the Dark Friend Social is 14 pages with 1 POV from Karede, Bors. In book 3, Fortress of the Light is 18 pages, so they're getting a bit bigger. 2 points of view, Pedro Denial and Karede, both White Cloaks. Then book 4, which I said in the previous episode had a huge prologue as well, actually doesn't have a prologue. Chapter 1, The Seeds of Sorrow, is abnormally long though, at 39 pages with Min, Elida, Dane Bornold, and Suroth. So that's 4 POVs with 39 pages. So that was already like quite a long chapter. Book 5, the prologue is called The First Sparks Fall. That's 23 pages, so back to a normal sort of chapter length with 3 POVs, Elida, Padenfane, and Ravin. Book 6 is The First Message, 73 pages with 11 points of view. Demandred, Nynaeve, Elaine, Fail, Gawain, Catherine Alrudin, Savannah, Morghese, Pedro Denial, Messana, and Osengar. Book 7, 48 pages in the prologue called Lightnings with 6 POVs, Elida, Savannah, LVR, and Pedro Denial, Aemon, Valda, Gawain. Pedro Denial featuring in a lot of prologues here. Like that, he's almost been relegated to just that. Book 8, the prologue is called Deceptive Appearances, back to a more normal length, 34 pages with 3 POVs, Ethaniel, Varen, and Moradin. If you remember, Path of Daggers starts with the Ethaniel is the Borderlander leaders in the Black Hills where they meet and they make the pact to go south. Book 9, Winter's Heart, the prologue is 76 pages with 4 points of view, Siain, Elaine, Tovine, and Rand. And then in this book, book 10, Glimmers of the Pattern, 80 pages. So only 4 pages more than the previous one with 7 POVs, which is Rodel, Aemon Valda, Gabrel, Yukiri, Gawain, Davin Bashir, and Samitsu. So some of the books have massive prologues. Some of them have tiny ones, and it's sort of tending towards the longer ones toward the end here.
Well, that middle one, that other one that had 11 POVs. But look at the list of characters that you're getting POVs for.
I know. Demandred, Nynaeve, Elaine, Fail, Gawain, Savannah, Morghese, Messana, Osengar. That's like 3 Forsaken in one chapter. Yeah.
So when he has a prologue that's almost 80 pages anyway, but those are the people you're reading about, then give me 80 pages. Yeah. But this last 80 pages was a bunch of, well, not a bunch of. I'm not going to finish that.
There was definitely some craft in there. Yeah. All right. We'll get to the prologues and the listener contributions because a lot of our listeners had opinions about that as well, so we'll get there. We briefly touched on Lanfear's strength before being reincarnated as Sindain, so here's a quick recap of the top ladies. Top female channelers in the world ever, Lanfear, Olivia, Semirag. Top of the food chain. Then the level just below them is Sindain, so Lanfear reincarnated, but still level with Messana, Talan, who's that Windfinder, young Windfinder, and Sharina Meloy, who's the really old novice. Which we will read about more in this book. She's at that level. She's higher than Nynaeve. Because the next level is Graendal, Nynaeve, and then an old Aes Sedai, Kerrigan, Makonar. And then the level below that is Moghedian and Somarin, who's the sort of super attractive Shido wise one that shows even more cleavage and jewelry than Savannah that we sometimes thought was her because of her physical description. But she's right up there with Moghedian. just below Grendel and Nynaeve and those guys. So yeah, I mean, it's good to keep these power levels in perspective.
I need to write that down.
I say good. Maybe it's more fun than good. We wondered if Semirhage and Messana were supposed to be at the meeting with Moradin and his pet rat when he tells him to kill Rand if he tries to cleanse Saidin. So the point of view is from Demandred, and Demandred mentions that he, Semirhage, and Messana have a pretty loose pact, and it was a pity that Semirhage struggled to make these meetings. It seems convenient, though, because Tuon is gone, so what is she doing with all her time? You know, like, why is she being so, struggling to make these meetings? And Demandred also thinks to himself that Messana has been shy as of late. But then when Moradin strides into that meeting with the rat on his shoulder and later burns it and stuff, he asks only about Messana. So I think Messana was supposed to be at that meeting, and we actually later in this book find out what happens to Messana as a fallout of not actually participating in all the stuff at the cleansing. Mm-hmm. We also speculated about why people sort of turned against the prologue from Crossroads and Twilight, and I mentioned offhandedly, wasn't it sold, as a standalone thing before the book was published? And it was. So the prologue Crossroads of Twilight was first sold by the Scribner imprint of Simon & Schuster as an ebook on the 17th of July 2002, 6 months in advance of the physical release of the book. So 6 months before we get the eagerly anticipated book, you get that prologue, which, has obviously not just divided, but like most people sort of dislike. So like people had to pay money for that instead of getting the book, and then had to wait and sit on that for 6 months before they got Crossroads of Twilight. Plenty of time for people to stew and sort of like,
Yeah, that's a terrible strategy.
That was bad, hey, like specifically based on what that content was. So like you can see now the seeds for the slog narrative being planted, and why people had turned against it. Then I just wanted to clarify some stuff about the Domani around Rodel Ituralde in the prologue. So Jalam, we discussed briefly, is one of Ituralde's officers, not a liegeman to Lord Shimron, who's also in that chapter. You guys are looking at me with blank stares. Do you remember who Jalam and Lord Shimron were?
Billy is
so Lord Shimron was a loyal and trusted advisor to King Al-Salam. And the king is a personal friend of Ituralde. So Ituralde has some level of respect for this Lord Shimron. Now, this Lord Shimron in that prologue had become a high-ranking Dragonsworn. Right? So remember, Ituralde was meeting with the Dragonsworn around Tarabon and Aradoman around the Almuth Plain, because ever since Falme, ever since the attack at Falme and the big battle there, at the beginning of the Dragon Reborn, Book 3, when Rand and everyone is camped out in the mountains, right? They're talking about Dragonsworn running around, fighting in the name of the dragon around the Almuth Plain and in Aradoman and stuff. So there we see the beginning of Dragonsworn and this Lord Shimron joining the Dragonsworn, while Massima is still a soldier camped with Rand in the mountains, and, Perrin with his shoe steps in the river and he gets a wet shoe, remember, and he has a conversation with Massima, all that stuff. So there is this concept of Dragonsworn pre the Prophet. So these Dragonsworn that Ituralde is meeting with in the prologue are not the ragtag, raggedy fucking douchebags that, follow the Prophet around. These are respected generals from Aradoman who just happen to be saying, okay, well, the dragon has been reborn. We are fighting in his name, sort of thing. And that's causing that unrest. So it's very easy to lose that when you read about Ituralde meeting with Dragonsworn. Yeah. It's not the Prophet's men. These are pretty savvy Domani soldiers and generals, and people trusted by King Al-Salam and stuff. So yeah, he's just a different breed. So then, Vil, you were so busy complaining about the first section, we missed what it was actually about, right? So in your recap of the summary, you were sort of being exaggerating and saying, it's 50 pages of this Dragonsworn bullshit, because you basically described the chapter up to the point that Ituralde meets with the Dragonsworn, and then you stop describing what happens. So Ituralde did think that Al-Salam's orders were a bit batshit crazy, right? Often resulting in the forces blundering into each other and people getting killed in confusion. But you were right, Jody, because you said at the time, some of the orders were actually really good, weren't they? But it wasn't some of the orders that Grendel was sending as King Al-Salam. It was specifically these orders that he just received. and they were different from the others, and he immediately seized upon them. Firstly, a grey man had tried to kill the messenger, which we know was staged by Grendel, but Iturralde thinks there is a real importance to them since the Shadow tried to intervene, or so he's been led to believe. But importantly, these orders open up a bunch of opportunities that Iturralde wanted to seize upon. So for the first time, he's got orders that he can work with. So it wasn't that sometimes the orders were good, just that this time he knew he could make something happen with them. Probably in a way not obvious to Grendel, from whom the orders actually came, right? So she's maybe sent him to go fight the Seanchan in the south, to just like cause even more chaos and stuff. And Iturralde went, okay, this I can actually work with. All the other orders have been an absolute shambles, but yeah, I'm going to do something cool. And that's why he goes to meet with those Dragonsworn. He says, come with me. I've got orders from Al Salam to go fight the Seanchan. Come with me. Let's put our differences aside, team up, and just get rid of these fucking Seanchan. So Grendel unwittingly gives Iturralde the path to actually pushing back the Seanchan and, delivering that killing blow in that battle that comes later.
So there is a battle.
There is a battle. It's the one, remember, where he had all the soldiers hidden in the city and he had peasants dressed up as soldiers running away because they only got their information from the sky, from the Raken. And then, when the Seanchan arrive in the city, then all the soldiers come out of the buildings. They'd been there for weeks hiding from the Raken. So he lures them into like a pretty awesome trap.
That old Three Amigos trick, yeah?
When we were talking about King Al-Salam, we said, was it him that was rolled up in the carpet, or was it Matan Stepanios? A lot of kings getting kidnapped and stuff. So it was Matan Stepanios, the king of Ilion, that was wrapped up in the carpet. But both kings were kidnapped by Elaida. So Elaida's orders did result in the kidnapping of both of those kings.
I wonder if she gave specific orders to wrap them in carpets. Like, you've got to do it.
That carpet one is like an offhanded comment when Swan delivers a report to Egwene. She tells her, some people say that the king of Ilion is dead, but some dock worker says that they saw him rolled up in a carpet, loaded onto a ship, and that actually did happen.
Because they thought no one's going to believe that. If someone sees it and tells someone, it's so ludicrous. They're going to think it's crazy. It's a good plan, actually.
Exactly. We wondered whether Gabrelle was brown or green Arger. She is brown Arger. We think of her as a green because of the methods she uses for getting close to Loghain, right? She sort of seduces him, and we're probably stereotyping the greens a little bit, but that's because RJ has gone to great lengths to make us do exactly that, right? Like that is a very common trait for a green. Vil, I think in the chapter description about the Yukiri point of view, remember when Seanchan comes up to her in the hallways of the tower and to talk about like the weird pattern that she found and everything, you were saying that the tower is under siege and closed. That's why Yukiri can't go anywhere, but it isn't under siege yet. So nobody says anything about a siege until Yukiri thinks to herself that she wishes the rebels would be there already so that it would force the Argers to come together again because everyone's sort of like at each other's throats, right? But it will take them months to get from Mirundi to Tarvalon in this weather. And then like in the next chapter, Gawain is in Dorlan and he can't get to the tower because that invading or that sieging army is there. The low numbers in the tower, though, are due to the split. Like we said, there's over 900 Aes Sedai. Generally speaking, 300 stayed with the tower, 300 joined the Saladar forces, and 300 of them are just sort of like around and not picking sides or anything. But then that makes the number of Aes Sedai that Elaida sent to the Black Tower so much more convenient. She sent 51 sisters of only 300, right? So the tower was, even at full strength, already underpopulated because we know their numbers have been dwindling over the years. Then 600 of them are removed, so only 300 are there. And then Elaida sent 51 of them away, and they were all captured by the Black Tower. So like the tower Aes Sedai are actually severely diminished, and that's why Yukiri is walking around the hallways, because there's very few Aes Sedai in the hallways, so like she notices how barren they are. But then on top of that, all the distrust between the Argers means everyone's staying in their rooms, right? Like no one is walking around. So like the tower literally looks like a ghost town. When Yukiri says to Seanchan that she won't be going for a walk anytime soon, it's because Seren, that old sitter who was the one that grabbed the rod from her when they found them in the dark room with Pavara using the oath rod and stuff, she told Seanchan to stay in her room because they've been uncovering Black Archer sisters. And the link between the Black Archer knowing Elaida's orders, maybe Elaida's a Black Archer sister, meant that Elaida, if she is Black Archer, might have told the Black Archer that Seanchan is actively looking for them, in which case Seanchan is in danger. So Seren has told her, stay in your rooms because you're actually in danger from the Black Archer in the tower. We mentioned Alviarin must be signing some kind of log or something when she leaves the tower because everyone knows that she's gone. It's not actually a log that they sign when they come and go. It's the servants that noticed that Alviarin had left and that she had specifically packed quite a lot of her clothing. So they expect her to be away for quite some time. And in this book, we actually find out for how long, and it is quite long. And that's why Yukiri tells Maidani, I think is the Aes Sedai that she's walking with, who's one of the ferrets who they've outed and now bonded with the Oath Rod. Yukiri is forcing her to rekindle her friendship with Elida from when they were novices to get more information and sway out of her. All right. Almost done, guys. We asked about the sisters who returned to the tower after Dumai's Wells, because we know there's a bunch of sisters in Dorlan who can't get to the tower now because of this army, right? We know Tana Fear and Catherine Elredin are in that meeting with Gawain in the inn in Dorlan at night, and they're talking about sneaking into the town with a fishing boat because I think it's Narenwin is an Aes Sedai that had come to Dorlan with orders for Gawain. So like, how did you get here? We need to use that method to get back into the city. But there's a bunch of other sisters there as well. So there were 12 sisters that returned from Dumai's Wells, but it was Kovarla who came to Elida in the early hours of the morning. She actually made it, so obviously the army wasn't there yet. She came to Elida and she told her about this, like, the terrible things that happened at Dumai's Wells, the abject failure of the kidnapping and all that stuff. And Elida said, Kovarla, you and all the sisters from that embassy, go to Dorlan and you stay hidden so that no one finds out about this shitty mission that I sent you on that failed so terribly. So it was Kovarla that made it into the tower, spoke to Elida, and was immediately sent back to Dorlan with 11 other sisters. So there's 12 sisters from Dumai's Wells. That embassy was like 39 sisters or something. It was quite a lot of them. So 12 of them are in Dorlan, and then Catherine, who was captured at Dumai's Wells, but freed from the Aiel camp by a dark friend because she's Black Arja. She also joins them in Dorlan, and we see her and Tana Fear talking to Gawain in the prologue. Tana Fear arrived a couple days before Gawain's point of view, so, when we joined Gawain there, she had been there for just, I think, 2 days. She's desperate to get back to the tower to tell Elida about everything she's found out about Saladar and the rebels, but the rebels have beat her here by just, using gateways. When Tana arrives, she takes control of all the Aes Sedai in Dorlan because she's the strongest. So she's in charge. Then when Catherine arrives the day before, so the day after Tana, just before this POV was set, she takes charge of everybody because she's the strongest. And Tana is put out by this. They're both Reds. So when Narenwin then arrives with a message for the sisters in Dorlan and the younglings, she has to concede to Catherine and Tana that she was sent to take charge of Kovarla and the sisters with her, to which Catherine responds, aha, so Elida clearly didn't mean me, so I will sneak back into the tower on a fishing boat. Tana, you may come along with me. Narenwin, you go deal with Kovarla and the rest of the sisters. We're not going to be listening to anything you have to say. And then we wondered out loud, like, what are these orders that Elida might have had for the younglings, but they never actually stated in the chapter. I think it's Ian or one of our listeners had actually responded with what those orders are. And you read about those orders later in this book, which I can reveal is that they need to raid Gareth Bryan's army and the rebels. So the younglings are like doing these guerrilla sort of attacks all the time and continuously harrying this army that's besieging Tarvalon. So those are the orders that Gawain was given. Then we had a pretty surprising chat about, like, who was it that can make Quain Diar again? Can Elaine make Quain Diar? Or is she just making Terangriel and stuff? But it's obviously Egwene because of how this book ends, right? Like, Egwene is the one that goes to turn the chain into Quain Diar. Like, I don't know. We're such doofuses. But the sisters that can make Quain Diar in order of proficiency are Egwene, she's the best. Then Leanne. Then Bode Cawthon. Chiron Stang. Ashmanile, Elthan Conley, Nicola Treehill. You remember Nicola, who was the sort of the one that tried to blackmail Egwene?
Yeah.
And then there are 4 or 5 other yellows. So in this book, we read about them practicing to make it as well, because they actually sell it for money to pay the army. They make Quain Diar and they sell it. Then you guys sort of raked me over the coals for calling the thing that Davram Bashir looks through to observe the armies around Camelin. I said it was a telescope, and you were like, no, it wasn't a telescope. It was a looking glass. I was like, okay, that's a bit of pedantry thrown in my direction. Like, what is the difference between a looking glass and a mirror? And when I did some research on what a looking glass is a mirror. It's something for seeing a reflection in. Yeah. But it is clearly, I mean, he's looking a long distance and he's seeing something. I think what RJ is referring to is like a spyglass. That's another name for what is also effectively it is a telescope, like it's just a type of telescope, because it makes things that are far away look close by. That's what it does. So it's just funny that it's funny that RJ called it a looking glass when a looking glass is a mirror. So think of like Alice in Wonderland through the looking glass, that's.
But I know what he means when they write looking glass. I don't know if it's just from reading so much of these books or if that's actually a word I know from outside.
And the context, right? Like he's standing on a hill looking at a distant encampment, and it literally says through the looking glass he can see quite clearly the banners and the emblem and the sigils of the houses and stuff. So he's like laying it all out there because he can see through a telescope exactly what those things are.
We do have instances of these sort of weird names for innate objects throughout the Randland world, so we should just accept that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is fantasy. There's a lot of made-up words in here, so we can squeeze another couple into our brains. Then I was quite impressed or tickled by the idea of it being David Hanlon smacking that commoner as they were trying to escape. Came to remember that the guards come out. And I went to go see, was it Hanlon? Is like the description of his uniform and stuff? Is it, does it describe his rank? The soldier that is that smacks that commoner is described as an officer with white plumes on his helmet and a red sash or slash across his chest. At this point in the story, Doyle Mellar is a captain and in charge of Elaine's protection, but there are lieutenants and under-lieutenants in the ranks as well. So I don't know that he would necessarily be the one to lead a group of guardsmen out of the gates, maybe. Because he's supposed to be in charge of Elaine's protection, not necessarily sending guys out there. But I do like to think that, the Andorran Queen's Guards are all good people and, loyal to the crown and good Queen's men, and they wouldn't do that. And the only one that would smack a commoner is David Hanlon. And then the last point I had there was that we asked about Sashel's strength in the one power. Remember, Sashel is the one walking with Samitsu. Samitsu is the one that's sort of grumbling, and to her point of view, she's grumbling because Cadswain had left her in charge, but Sashel is now taking over because Sashel is more powerful than Samitsu in the one power. And she's actually really strong, on the same level with Bera and Kiruna, Galena, Sheriam, and of the tower loyalists, only Elida is stronger than what she is. But she's one of the Aes Sedai that was stilled at Dumai's Wells and then healed by Dharma Flint. So she's back to her full strength and free of the Oath Rod. She had been stilled and healed. Yeah. So keep that in mind when we read about her again.
Little tricksters.
Yes. Okay, that's enough pedantry from me. Now let's get to pedantry from our listeners. Now, it was, like I said before, an 8-week break, which left a lot of time open. Ian Yellen even sent in 2 because he just missed the cutoff for the previous episode. So we have to go back a little bit further. So strap in, get comfy, and let these waves of enlightenment wash over you. There's some real good stuff in here. All right, so Ian is first cab off the rank, and he says that I've really enjoyed the last few episodes, especially with some of the traveling I've been doing. So it's nice airplane travel material. I wanted to say I don't think Fane's intent with the image was really to distract Rand, if you can remember that whole schmozzle, but to make him feel outnumbered. This didn't really work since Rand knows how much better he is at combat than the majority of Ashaman. Also, you wondered if the battle outside Shadow Logoth was the first time we acknowledged that Sindain was Lanfear. It was the first time that it had been confirmed, but previously we had received hints that this was true. Demandred had theorized that Sindain was Lanfear due to her references to Rand as Lews Theron and her familiarity with the Kuden Kal and the Age of Legends. I also seem to remember the scene where Moghedien and Sindain pop in on Grendel, where Grendel remarked how Sindain carried herself like Lanfear. Anyway, I really enjoy the show. Thank you for doing it. Cool. Part 2. I'm gonna breeze through these, right? If you guys want to interject, please do. But I'm just gonna bomb through them. So the second message from Ian. Here we go. Prologue talk. Some thoughts on the prologue in the last episode, which was quite humorous. Probably laughing at me trying to pump up the prologue, and you guys adamantly making sure I understand it's shit. The young sitters is something that Swan identified as well, and it was a manipulation by the heads of the Argos to help steer the sitters and then ease a reunification of the tower. Mick had sent in a long treatise about that at a previous point, and he reconfirms that again today. Gawain always seemed like a whiny brat to me, but his siding with Elida I thought was always more about who would keep his sister and Egwene in a gilded cage versus endangering them. So that makes sense, for him to be following Elida, because Elida would put them in the tower and they would be safe and they wouldn't be off, doing things with the rebels or, even worse for Rand. So thanks to you guys, I'm looking for more connections for some of the more sloggy chapters like this prologue. So here are some that I identified. The thing that the men were looking for in Bashir's tent was the same thing they were looking for in Dobrain's room when he was almost killed. The seals to the Dark One's prison. They're still not sure of who wrote the letters. So Joe, I think you speculated that it could be the seals. We were sort of we stumbled around it, didn't really know. So even in the prologue, that attack on Bashir's tent, remember where Dira was, cut and the guys got away. Like Bashir and Dobrain both have some of the seals. So someone knows that. And at some point later in the story, I'm pretty sure that it turns out that the seals that Rand has in his possession or with his people are fakes. That the seals had been stolen, that they steal them back before Logan can break them. So I wonder if these guys maybe even were successful.
Yeah.
At least the guys that got away from maybe Bashir's tent. Anyway, Ian continues. He says, Gawain's section introduces that the younglings will be the ones performing raids on the rebel camps throughout the siege. Logan's request to recruit was subterfuge. We know that was, Logan said to Taim, or Logan gets the confirmation from that other Ashaman that comes and makes an offhanded comment about Tovin. Taim has said, it's fine, you can go recruit. And then Logan sort of says, okay, time to move. And Tovin and Gabriel are like, oh shit, this man is marching off to war. So that was subterfuge to meet with Bashir. He's the mysterious man at the end of Bashir's point of view. Remember, Bashir said, go tell the man that we met earlier, we will be considerably more people than we originally thought. It was Logan. And we actually read what they do in this book as well. They then go to Kyrian, where they gather up Samitsu, Loyal, Calden, and the warders of the Aes Sedai that are with Rand, so that they can go and find Rand in Tyr, where he is recuperating after the cleansing. Anyway, I enjoy the podcast. Have a happy Christmas. Oh, I also wanted to say one of the things that is so frustrating about all the Aes Sedai is a running thread through the books. Rand takes over an area, sets up a cadre of people who are actually good or want to do what's best for their people. Aes Sedai come in and undermine, promote, and bag greedy individuals or remove Rand's trusted supporters, and this causes chaos and people tend to die. Same Aes Sedai then look around and say, look at all the problems Rand al'Thor causes and why is he getting so upset and frustrated? Yeah, sounds about right. Sounds typical Aes Sedai.
Very good. Very good.
Thanks for that, Ian. Scott Wilson sends in some more opinions. He goes, like you gentlemen, I don't remember a lot of details sometimes, but I believe that it was that what was going on with both Bashir and Dobrain was Dark Friends looking for the seals. Check and check. I do side with Jody about Cadswain. I also agree with Willie that it was not a great way to start the book. There was a lot of good info and character insight, but it could have been sprinkled in at different points to break it up so that it wasn't one right after the other. Thanks and keep up the great work. You guys have got more supporters. In fact, I don't think anyone supported my theory that the prologue was okay.
Oh, sorry, Moritz. Someone write in and support Moritz, please.
That's okay. I don't need it. I'll be the ray of sunshine. Chris Green opens up some old wounds for us. He goes, while I appreciate your heroic efforts to put the cleansing narrative in perspective, Mo, after reading the prologue to Crossroads of Twilight, I'm even more firmly in Willie and Jody's camp. We only got 30 pages for this seminal moment in the series, the cleansing of the source and the largest set-piece battle between the forces of the light versus the Forsaken up to this point in the series, juxtaposed to the very next entry in the series, the 80-plus page prologue. 80 pages of internal monologues from tertiary characters. We got more words dedicated to a power control battle between minor Aes Sedai than we did for the entirety of the cleansing. Beep, 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 beep. Pedantry alert. 24 pages for the Samitsu Sashal POV, standard chapter length, and 30 pages for With a Kuden Call, but I take your point. As an aside...
How does an African swallow carry a 10-pound coconut?
I can grip it by the husk.
How big was that font? In which book are we talking? What was the bleed on the page?
Chris continues and he says, as an aside, it took me 3 sittings to get through the prologue. This does not bode well for the slog, but I'm happy to have you all to share the journey with. Okay, Chris, I've declared wholeheartedly and full-throatedly that the slog is dead. I hope that this is the case for you. I am, again, more positive now than I was before we started. Then, Mick Halverson sends in some more reminders and an interesting theory. He goes, "Hi Mo, when Seanchan brings up the unusual new sitters in the prologue, she's talking about the same thing that Swan saw at the Rebel Tower. Swan had noticed that some of the new sitters in the Rebel Tower were too young. She's still trying to figure out what this means. The full plot is revealed when the tower is reunited. The Argerheads conspired to each send a sitter to the rebel camp. Then they planned to maintain some control over the rebel tower and encourage them to return to unite to the tower. So these sitters were placed in the tower with new sitters that could easily be replaced when the tower is reunited. The temporary sitters are all either too young or have recently been sitters and stepped down, or they could be stepped down. They were made sitters by the Argerheads and not the usual nomination or voting system. So that's what Seanchan is sort of like, telling us about. So we were wondering, like, is this just like emblematic of the Aes Sedai? Is this just how they are? Or is it coordinated, conspired? It is conspired. The Argerheads specifically had plants in both the rebels and in the tower to facilitate a reunification more easily. So both Swan and Seanchan have noticed the pattern, and it is definitely coordinated. So in the rebel tower, the two young sitters were raised to the hall again so they could be easily replaced when the tower was reunited, although this backfired as all of the two young sitters in the rebel tower voted for war, giving Egwene the power she needed to besiege Tarvalon. So thanks Mick and everyone else that commented on that one. Right, here's a cool theory. Mick's theory on Mat's dice. Lots of people think that Mat's tumbling dice are some sort of warning of danger. I don't think this is true, and the reason people believe this is because we only know about the dice from Mat's POV, and Mat is usually doing something dangerous, which is true. Mm-hmm. Other theories are that the dice come from when Mat is approaching an important choice or something important for his future. I think this is closer, but watching the dice since Mat has come to Ebou Dar, I think the dice point to important markers of his impending fate, specifically to marry the daughter of the Nine Moons. When Mat first comes to Ebou Dar, the dice are tumbling until he's in the Mulhara Square and decides to stay at Satel Anan's inn. Coming up in future chapters, Satel helps Mat to actually woo Tuon. The dice stop as he decides to stay at the Wandering Woman and meet Satel. The next time the dice start up is when he was following Millie Skane, but if you look into what was happening the chapter before that, the girls were meeting with the Windfinders, and on the way to that meeting, Aviendha suggested that they should use Mat's Taveran nature to help them find the Bowl of the Winds. I think the dice started when Aviendha suggested he help the girls find the bowl. As part of this arrangement, Mat has to move into the palace, where he eventually meets Tuon. The next time they start up, it seems random, but I think it's because the Seanchan leave Tanchico or Amador and are on their way to Ebou Dar. I think we even said this. These dice keep rattling around in Mat's head until the wall falls on him during the Seanchan invasion. His broken leg traps him in place until he meets Tuon, or in the palace until he meets Tuon. In these early chapters of Crossroads of Twilight, the dice start up as they are leaving Ebou Dar, and they stop because Tuon stays quiet and does not try to alert the guards that she is being kidnapped, leading to her and Mat's time together and their courtship. They start up again when Mat is with Valan Luca's show, and just as the show is starting to pack up and move, the dice start up again. This is because Mat has already decided that he needs to go and speak to Tuon. When he tells Egeanin he has to see Tuon before the show leaves, he realizes he has been thinking about this for a while, probably at the time the dice started up. These dice stop when Mat and Tuon come to an agreement. We'll cover that in these chapters, right? Like they spit in their palms and shake hands. And Tuon promises not to try to escape as long as Mat keeps his promise not to harm her and to get her back to Ebou Dar when he can. Going further back in time, lots of the dice rolling in Mat's head can point to a bit where Tuon marries him. Tuon says the words when she sees Mat leading the band of the Red Hand in battle. The words to marry him, that is. In the Fires of Heaven, the dice spin in his head a lot. This is when Mat is trying to avoid battle and keeps building the band of the Red Hand. Mat leading the band of the Red Hand is the final thing that makes Tuon marry him. Tuon's prophecy goes, "Beware the fox that makes the ravens fly, for he will marry you and carry you away. Beware the man who remembers Hawkwing's face, for he will marry you and set you free. Beware the man of the Red Hand, for him you will marry and none other." I'm pretty sure the dice are tumbling when Mat is planning to battle the Seanchan traitors, and they stop when Tuon says the word 3 times, finishing with, "Mat bloody Cawthon is my husband." Cheers, Mick. Interesting. So Mick's whole theory is that everything the dice are pointing towards is set up and the eventual marriage to Tuon. To which my response is, the real proof of this theory will be what happens after that. Do we ever hear the dice again?
So what is he suggesting? From the first time he heard the dice in his life, it's all been for Tuon.
It's all been for Tuon. Either my initial response to Mick was going to be like, well, causality, right? Like, how do you, every single choice we make along the way is what leads us to our eventual position, right? So like, if the dice are rattling when Matt's life might be in danger and he overcomes an attack or something like, not that I have a specific reference, but like that you could construe as like Matt needs to survive the attack to be able to marry Tuon, you know, like you can draw links, you can draw the red string from every single thing Matt does to eventually meeting Tuon, because that is the path that is set before him. But I'd be very interested, like I said, to see, because I like this theory, because the prophecy of him marrying Tuon was given to him by the Finns, right? And the dice started rattling after he went to the Finns. So that prophecy and the dice could very easily be linked. And if it does pan out to be this, that would be cool, because that's not something any of us saw. Mick mentions in this little thing here that the same thing we had spoken about, where Matt thinks originally the dice are rattling because of some danger, right? But in this book we read, and maybe even in this in these chapters we cover today, Matt has sort of evolved his own theories. Like, okay, it's not necessarily just danger; it could be just something significant. And like, you know, the readers and Matt are sort of learning at the same time to whittle down the things that the dice could be pointing towards, and it could be pointing towards a very specific thing, which is marrying Tuon. Okay, we have a couple more shorter listener contributions. This is an interesting one, completely off any of these topics, and I'd like you guys to weigh in here. Emily writes in again with the following. She goes, "Hi Mo, Happy New Year to you, Willie and Jody. I've continued to listen to your Blood and Ashes podcast since reaching out to you last year, and I'm currently on episode 59 from Lord of Chaos, where Egwene is raised to Amelin. Hearken the trumpets. Something occurred to me in this reread that I never noticed in my first read of The Wheel of Time. Since you're a fan of the Aiel, perhaps you have some insight about the following. As far as I can tell, Aiel women only seem to have 3 paths to choose in life. Maidens of the Spear, the only one of 12 warrior societies that women can join, wise ones, or domestic roles, including roof mistress. Whereas Aiel men can choose to have a domestic role, e.g. blacksmith, or select to join one of the 11 other warrior societies. In a culture where women are placed in such high regard with wise ones and roof mistresses, why do you think there's only one warrior society available to women? And what are the implications of this? If all men have to spread themselves out between 11 societies, do we think that the main society is naturally the most populous, as it is the de facto choice for all female warriors? I'm likely being pedantic, as you would say, but it just never occurred to me on my first read that Aiel women couldn't be in any other society except for the maidens. It fundamentally does not change the story or plot, just a curious choice on RJ's part, and I wondered if you have ever discussed it. All the best, Emily. Thoughts?
I have thoughts on that. I mean,
Okay.
Men tend to stay with their societies for a lot longer. But
Aiel men, or do you mean men in general?
No,
human men.
And this is their battle societies. But the girls can leave when they get pregnant, can't they? They can marry and tap out.
In fact, they have to make a choice. They either have to give away their child anonymously, and that child will never know that they were their mother, or they can leave the maidens. They can put down the spears.
I could
Same
see
for marriage.
That hard choice will out numbers.
That's exactly one of my responses as well.
Especially if a third of, I mean, we're using thirds, but you don't know what the percentage of representation is. It's to say that a large number of the maidens of the spears might say, nah, being a roof mistress is where I'm heading.
I mean, as parents, we also know giving away a baby, that would be hard, right? So, and we all know that the maidens are sexually active and actually quite, like promiscuous at times. Like they're portrayed as being very like sexually awakened and like, playing, what is the game with the knives where they maidens kiss, there's a lot of opportunities for them to fall pregnant. Not a lot of condoms in the third age, right? Like not a lot of contraception. So, like if a maiden falls pregnant, she would have to make a very, very hard choice. I'm willing to step into the bear trap of gender stereotypes as well, and just say that I feel like men are just, by nature more, inclined to violence and fighting. Like that is a much more male energy, and I think there would be a larger number of men that would turn to fighting than there would be women.
Yeah,
I
I
think men
was going to say
also
the same
can't
thing.
agree.
You're
so
not alone.
There'll
in
be
this.
more groups of men because fuck those O's. Fucking fish
Yeah, I mean,
carp
I'm sure
fishermen.
that the percentage of women in Aiel society that want to become warriors is higher than in Andorran society, but it's still lower than the percentage of men from the Aiel.
Yes.
So
I
to
would agree
begin with,
that.
the women would be fewer in number anyway who want to join societies, and then
Yeah.
compounded with this, you would still have to breed. You need to keep the Aiel alive.
Totally.
So
There's another differentiator between the men and the women, the male warriors and the female warriors, that even female warriors can't even marry. Ruach, right?
Yeah.
Warrior, married, multiple wives.
yeah,
The woman can't even marry. And that stems from the original Maiden of the Spear. In the visions Rand gets from the columns, there's a woman whose children are kidnapped by raiders. And she wants to go free them. But her husband is of the Gen Aiel and he won't take up arms and go free the children. And she goes, fuck this, I'm going to go get my children. And when she's given a spear, she looks at it and she goes, this is my husband now. Because, that split between the Gen Aiel and a weapon-wielding warrior Aiel means that they won't acknowledge each other's existence anymore, which means she can't have a husband. And because of that tradition, none of the maidens are even married, right? So not even the baby thing, but like even marriage means that you can't be. That's why Janduin never married Rand's mother. What was her name? Tigraine. Yeah, Shail. So yeah, I think there's a couple of reasons. Also, like the women aren't reduced to only being roof mistresses. There's loads. There's traders and bakers, and there's all kinds of maybe that's the domestic roles that Emily was referring to. But there's lots of other stuff for them to do. But yeah, the maidens are kind of special. They've got their own rules. Some of those because women can have babies, right? That's a pretty hard and fast one. I hope that answers your question, Emily. Then new contributor Christine writes in for the first time with the following. She goes, hi, you guys. I'm writing in from Germany. Actually, I'm still catching up with your episodes, binging every evening. Just a short remark on episode 47, if you guys can cast your minds that far back, to the battle at Kyrian, and that you can gain battle experience with Dungeons and Dragons. Now imagine being a game master and setting this battle for your players. I am the game master with some players, and we are playing the Wheel of Time role-playing game. Just started a few weeks ago. The Battle of Falmey will be my first battle to do, and I'm looking forward to it. Greetings to you three from the middle of Germany, Christine. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I hope Christine can come up with a better strategy for Jeffrem Bornhold than the Legion advances with a trot.
Yeah.
That's
I was
the
thinking
two
the exact same thing. I
settings.
think if you're
One
playing the
setting
White Cloaks,
next setting advance at a trot.
Okay, one more listener message, guys, from Marcus, and he sends in a pretty relatable message saying, hey guys, I hope you had a great holiday season. I certainly did. Really looking forward to listening to the next episode. I originally intended to read along with you, but I couldn't contain myself and had to push on. I didn't want to read another book between, so I just read on right up to the Towers of Midnight, where I'm currently at. I'll just re-listen to the chapters that you're covering each time to not completely lose track. Marcus is dedicated, right? Like he's reading ahead, then re-listening to the chapters for the episode. I love the commitment, Marcus. In hindsight, I somehow understand, but still don't agree with where the feeling of the slog comes from. Compared to the other books, the pace is very slow in Crossroads of Twilight. I was made aware of that when I read the prologue of Knife of Dreams. There seems to be more happening in the prologue than in all of Crossroads of Twilight. But there still was a lot of detailed stuff happening that I really enjoyed the second time around. For example, I really like Matt and Tuon's relationship developing, though I do agree that he could have cut back a bit on the Andorran court intrigues and the amount of named but utterly irrelevant nobles. We'll get to that, Marcus. I've wanted to write in about the whole Cadswain controversy, but it's true that over time there are some redeeming things happening, but overall, I still can't bring myself to like her. Especially her reaction to the whole Rand Semirog encounter and her absolute inability to accept even the smallest bit of blame really put me off. So in short, Cadswain, fall. Eagerly awaiting the next episode of Blood and Ashes. Cheers, Marcus. Yeah, thanks, Marcus. I'm still in Team Cadswain at this point. Jody and Willie still don't like her. But if she refuses to accept responsibility for something that she's obviously responsible for, that is going to be a big ding. Okay, guys, that was a marathon callback section. Awesome listener contributions. So I'm going to keep the next section really brief before Willie can get us going with a previously on Blood and Ashes. Rodel Ituralde makes a pact with the Domani and Terabona Dragonsworn to team up against the invading Seanchan. Eamon Valda and Radha Masanawa have a bit of a who's the most misinformed contest camped with the remnants of the White Cloaks. Gabriel and Tovin sense Logain's growing frustration with Taim loyalists in the Black Tower, and he finally prepares to make a move. Yukiri instructs Medani to rekindle her friendship with Elida now that Elviaran has left the tower, and Siane comes to tell Medani and Yukiri about the irregularities in the sitters that she's picked up on. Gawain reluctantly accepts new orders from Elida, sent to Dorlan via Narenwin, and Tarnafir finally tells him that Elaine is safe. Davram Bashir sits back and watches the siege of Camelin unfold before returning to camp and finding his wife had been attacked by an unnamed assailant, now dead. And finally, Samitsu is put out by the fact that despite Catswain leaving her in charge, Sashal, who is stronger in the One Power, has taken charge herself. Sashal has been healed from distilling to her full power and is the strongest sister in Kyrian. They go to the kitchens and find a returned Loyal and Calden, but before they can interrogate them properly, they're called to Dobrain's rooms where he's found nearly dead. Samitsu heals him enough for him to survive, and on one of the dead assailants, they find a forged letter alluding to someone wanting to take something from Dobrain's rooms. And that brings us to today's first chapter. Finally, what are we, like an hour into the recording?
I forgot why we were here.
Chapter 1 is called Time to Be Gone. Joe, time to be gone from all this preamble and dive into a summary from you.
Yeah. Wow. Zoned out for a long time there. A lot just happened before we even get to these chapter summaries, and my notes are a bit of a mess. So I'm going to cruise through them pretty quickly, and then we can talk afterwards. Yeah, chapter 1, Time to Be Gone. So we left off with Rand cleansing the source and all of that whatnot, and we pick up right now as that's finished, or carrying on about that same time, but we're with Matt. Good old Matt. Finally, we get some chapters that we're going to like. I'm sure Willie enjoyed these, and everyone did, all of our listeners. So he's kind of trapped in Ebou Dar. He's waiting out. He's hiding in plain sight is his idea. They're not going to run off and make a big scene. They're just going to hang outside. So he's just outside of Ebou Dar, and he's sitting on a rock, and Noel's fishing with him, just having some classic old time. And he's just kind of zoning out, looking out over the water, and sees all these things moving. And when he looks closer, it's like a body cleanup crew going through the canals during the aftermath of the battle in Ebou Dar when he escaped. And then the Windfinders also escaped and made a big scene, and all the sea folk made a run for their ships, and there was a whole big thing that happened. Anyway, so that all happened off screen or off page, and we are just with the stuff the next day, and it's a shit show. A lot of people died. A lot of ships are burnt in the harbor, and there's a lot of descriptions of all the chaos that has been left behind. If you recall, Matt kind of snuck out as well with a certain Tuon, a certain daughter of the Nine Moons. She was not wrapped in a blanket. She was wrapped in a wall hanging. So, I don't know. Maybe it's different for Seanchan. There's no carpets for them. But she just, to the first-time reader, you see that she wants to be kidnapped. You already know that, hey, she's very happy to be going along with this. She wants to see where this all goes and who this Matt guy is. So they laying low there, checking out all the disaster that's happened. And Egeanin sneaks up behind him and gives him kind of a fright, kind of even lets his little daggers out of his sleeves, ready to kill her. But she helped him escape. And there's this little scene where he has, recalls how they escaped, and then we read about how them coming through that night when it was all raining and dark, and they had Tuon wrapped up. And just as they're going through the guardhouse is when the explosions and the trumpets start going off, so they manage to sneak out, because they are in a tight spot, really. There's Damane and Suldam at the guardhouse checking them, and lots of guards. They're very thorough, but luckily they're saved by the Windfinders who actually jump the gun a little bit in their escape and do escape. So him and Egeanin. Egeanin? I can't pronounce her name anymore. Egeanin. Yeah, so they're having a kind of like the beginnings in this chapter, at least, of a power struggle, because she was the one who led them out. It had to be her. So she's kind of got it under, in her opinion, that she's in charge. And Matt's like, no, I'm in charge. This is my plan. So he's busy sitting there making a plan. So his plan is to, like, they've been hanging out with Valan Luca's menagerie. We're back with that guy. And now I always picture him as, what's his name, Moritz? The actor that we said should play him.
Oh, Matt Berry.
Matt Berry. So he's always Matt Berry now when I'm reading the chapters in my mind. Even sounds the same.
My voice.
Yes. That voice. So they're hanging out with them. They had to pay a whole bunch of bribes and everything to get accommodation, and it's not looking good. So he's kind of hanging out here to escape all that madness. Because you remember, he's got 3 Aes Sedai with him. He's got 3 Suldam with him. I think he's got. Did he get a Daman? No, there's no Daman, except the escaped Aes Sedai.
The escaped Aes Sedai,
Aes Sedai.
So them say, he's having to deal with Luca. He's got Egeanin. He's got Bail Domin with him. He's got some of his Red Arms are still alive, believe it or not, and they are with him. Of course, So there's this little power struggle heading between the two of them. And eventually they decide, because now they're in disguise as well. They've got a wig on her, and he and Egeanin are pretending to be lovers. So they have to hold hands. It's very awkward, and she's not a fan of it, and he's not a fan of holding her either. She's not she wouldn't be his first choice to play this. But basically, they decide at the end of the chapter now that they're going to head back to the camp, and he has to go and have a chat with somebody, presumably his future wife. So yeah. Quick recap of what happened in that chapter. Any questions?
No questions, really. Phil, you got any points you wanted to raise?
No, there's things like it's now the motions of getting things done in typical RJ fashion. The wind blows over the mountain.
Yes. There's a wind.
We have the intro.
Get moving with the intros and the setting the scenes and over fruity coloration and descriptive words that we don't know. We're off to a good start.
I think this is a chapter of little moments. Like, I mean, we could sit here probably and talk about this chapter for an hour if we wanted to, but we won't.
There's no need to. In fact, most of these chapters, actually, I shouldn't say most of them, the first 3 at least with Matt and Egeanin and stuff are pretty by the book, right? There's not an awful lot that we need to read in here. It's just RJ telling the story. The one with Karede and Elmaret Moore is a bit more nuanced, just a conversation again. But what I took from this chapter is it's been 6 days since they escaped, which is important when you get to the Karede chapter. Like, he thinks to himself, they've got a 10-day head start. No, actually, only 4.
Yeah.
So it's been 6 days. And it sounds like the Windfinders caused a massive ruckus, right? Matt is trying to calculate by looking at which ships have been sunk, but it's hard because you can't tell with them underwater. But he calculates that, or he at least surmises that some of the sea folk did get away. They actually did escape Ebou Dar, even with there's 100 bodies hanging from gibbets in the Rahad, right? So because Dakoval, which all the sea folk were at that point, their end when they executed, they are hung, right? So, and they're hanging in the Rahad and stuff. But he did manage to free some of the sea folk, and this might even be in a later chapter, but that distraction got them out.
Yes.
I won't get too much. I think it's a Jody or a Willie chapter. Maybe it's a Jody chapter where they think back to that night. It's like a flashback.
I said that.
Okay. So right I won't. Sorry.
No one was listening to me.
No one ever listens to me. There's another little mention of Matt's sort of almost defining feature here. He thinks to himself that he has obligations that he can't walk away from. Like, he's got this strong sense of duty and honor, right? Like, he needs to help these people. He has these obligations now of all these people around him that he can't walk away from, which is just like that defining Matt trait. Then I had to laugh because he thinks to himself, you could manage an insolent grin that sent most puffed up fools into apoplexy. He's just grinning at Egeanin and thinking this will send her spinning.
No. Another thing that you're talking about Egeanin and looking at the ships and whatnot, and he says one of the first things he says when he comes out of his zoning is like they don't have enough ships to go home, and Egeanin's like we are home, like you don't know, you don't understand, we're not going anywhere.
No, this is it. Yeah. This is me. Was there some like mention of like the dice stopping here as well? Like
oh shit, Dude, much happened with the dice. The dice start later.
Yes. They start and stop a couple times in these chapters. But he thinks to himself that like the diversion and escaping from the city stop the dice from rattling. And I think that is described in detail in the moment when it happens. But he thinks here that like like the dice is, and I was wondering like, okay, does this fit mixed theory? And so far, yes, when they escape the city, it sets up the time for him and Tuon, with Tuon in tow, for them to spend time together. But that's it. That's it from me. Just a little, pretty straightforward start to our little Matt escape excursion here. Matt and, these, and Tuon, or not Tuon so much, but Matt and everyone here being the ones on the lam. So, should we move ahead then to chapter 2?
Yeah.
Let's forge
Why
ahead.
not? Chapter 2 is called Two Captains. Willie, you're the two captains now.
That meme has been in my head all day long.
I bet.
Look at me now. 2 pies. All right. We carry on with Matt, and we're kind of finally leaving Ebou Dar. They may have escaped the palace, but they're not gone yet, because their method of escape is, as we know, old mate Luca. And he's traveling menagerie. New icon page, right? Did you see that?
What is it?
It's an elephant.
A threat.
Shredded.
A threat. A shredded.
A shredded?
Elephant.
S apostrophe Reddit.
Shrew.
Oh, yeah.
Because elephants shredded when they fight. Yeah.
There it is.
Okay. Anyway, Luca's traveling menagerie is not quite traveling yet. Ebou Dar has fallen, as we've gone through, and business isn't great, and Luca's all about money. So it is time for him to start moving, if you get what I'm saying. Matt is basically reuniting us with every member of his entourage, pretty much, in this chapter. So there's a lot of nothingness happening, but reminders of who's all traveling with him. He hangs out with Pietra now. If you remember Pietra, the muscle man. At the muscle man, strong man, who tells him that there is some Seanchan shoulders. That is a real tongue twister, that is in the caravan with Luca. So that sends Egeanin spinning, because, oh shit. But Noel has the most surprising. He's already, where's the horses? He's thinking super quick escape. And if there's an escape, he'll be with them. Either which way, Petra tells him, like, look, chill out. It doesn't appear to be a raid or a search. It all looks pretty much just an official something happening. I mean, otherwise there would be a hell of a lot more of them anyway. Cole, the horse handler, has his moment in the sun here. A little bit of page time. Perhaps he'll come up again.
Maybe.
I don't know. I didn't
Unlikely.
look him up. Oh, man. While this is all going down, Matt deep dives every possible scenario through his vast library of AI battles to what these soldiers, Seanchan soldiers, are doing at Valan Luca, and then decides that it's time to go have a little scout around the caravan, and not get into trouble. That he then saddles Noel to make sure that Alba is taken care of, and off he goes. And at this stage, there is no dice rattling in his head. So he's himself a little bit confused in that. Anyway, he got 15 paces away, and then he gets an annoying anhanger grab him around the waist from behind, like a real love-struck kitten. Edgy's now caught up to him, and of course, where Edgy goes, the Bail Doman follows. There's a very weird plan that they have. Don't know how this is going to play out with her being his partner. Any which way, she is so confident in her disguise. Now, okay, disguises and women in this book, it hasn't gone well.
She's got a wig.
But she got a wig.
That's it.
So I don't know. That's it. She got a
wig and no armor.
And they cut her fingernails.
Yes.
Oh, they did. Yes.
Yeah, there was fingernail cuttings and all of the rest. But didn't she also have her hair shaven?
That's why she's wearing a wig.
I don't think they shave. She wouldn't shave her head.
Shaving.
She would die.
She had some of her head shaven because.
Yeah, but she wouldn't shave it completely.
Oh no!
No, that's why she's so ashamed, because she is shaven completely bare like Tuon.
I don't think she is. Like, that's what I'm saying. I don't think she would even try it. No. It's not in her character.
I think it was.
I think Vil's right. I think she did shave it, and she's wearing the wig because she's so ashamed of what this means.
Because it was the only
she's
way
very
to
afraid
get
of it moving. She's constantly touching it.
Yes.
That she had.
Okay, maybe you're right. I immediately am convinced. No need for callbacks.
Yeah.
Easy.
Right. One thing that is offered to Matt is that he can do all the talking, but she will accompany him. That doesn't often go down right. Anyway, we enter Wagon Town. Wagon Town is a place where there's heaps of tinker-like wagons, all part of the traveling menagerie, all with their weird things, balancing ropes and nonsense. Among Wagon Town, another introduction to the crew is Aludra. Yes, Aludra is still there, and Matt thinks about Aludra, her waistline, his challenge to impress her, he needs to find some. What does he have to do to find
bell founder?
The firework.
Just to tell her why she would need a bell founder.
A bell founder. That's right. That's when Egeanin says he's acting poorly because they're supposed to be lovers, and he's goggling Ludra. He's not going to pass. But anyway, we get to Valan Luca's wagon, if you want to call it that, caravan.
Mobile home.
It would make a tinker blush. Just fancy and colourful. Anyway, the soldiers up and off. They've done their business. No problems. Turns out that Matt being worried that what if one of those Seanchan knows you, when Egeanin came with, and her vehemently saying there's not a possibility of that. No, she does know one of them. It's a boy that's in the group of soldiers that was on the boat that she sailed over. So there's already...
But on the boat from one of those islands, not from...
Cantoran.
Yeah, that one.
Cantoran, yes. Anyway, the object of the whole visit was horses. The whole topic, they need more horses, obviously, as battle rages. And Valan has got stamps and papers to free him from the horse lottery. Is that what they call it? But anyway, Luca announces it like a showman in front of his stagecoach caravan. And then has a little freak out at Matt that this is all Matt's fault. Matt then just reminds him and points him into reality again, like, if the Seanchan pulled in and you just left immediately, you would have had nothing. They would have taken your horses, assumed guilt, and that would have been the end of your circus. So be thankful. And I think you should be thankful, because that's the truth.
Damn Skippy.
Now, Egeanin isn't happy when she finds out that they are now, Valan Luca has now made his big announcement that we are up and leaving. Drop the big top. It's time to go and hit the road. But they will only leave the minute Tom gets back, and Egeanin hasn't approved anyone's comings and goings. So there's a bit of a power tussle. But Valan Luca doesn't listen to command, he listens to gold. And the one footing the gold is Matt. So in his kingdom, Matt is king. The king that is just a bit lower than him, paying him gold. So that's not going down well.
Luca is such a tool. He freaks out and goes, "We should have left a month ago." But I'm pretty sure Matt was thinking in the previous book, like, Luca is a way of escaping, but he's only going to leave like next season. Like, Luca is the one that wanted to stay, and then Matt thinks to himself,
"There was coin."
Luckily, he's into gold, and Matt thinks to himself, for enough gold, Luca would help him kidnap the Dark One.
Yes.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Anyway, Matt takes that as his cue to get out of that area, dodges down an alley, and moving fast, and before he knows it, his girlfriend is with him again. This is where the two captains, one ship, sink ship comment comes out and points us to our title of two captains. And there's a bit of a standoff, but Matt deals with it the only way he knows is rub it under the carpet and move along. Let's not have a long drawn out discussion about this. He finds Julian and Oliver playing Snakes and Foxes. And Noel appears, and this is the first time now that we're going to have this many references to Noel being, or where has he been? Just out of breath, a little bit haggard. He's up to a lot of things, but we're having these little...
He's striding
far striding. Now, Thera is there with Julian. We need to be reminded on who Thera is. Do I need to remind you guys who Thera is?
Amathera, the Panarch of Tenchiko?
Panarch, Amathera, who's now property, who's now lover with a thief catcher, who is frowned upon by Egeanin. There's a lot of frowning of people upon him.
Because she's Ducko Val.
Anyway.
He's sort of fraternizing with the help.
No, because he stole her. He's a thief.
Fraternizing with the property.
And that pisses him off even more because he's a thief catcher.
That's
and
true.
He doesn't appreciate that.
He stole property, and that's not good. And he's supposed to be a property stealer preventer.
He has a real hatred of thieves.
Yes, and slavery.
But yes, slavery. That's important to point out.
Bold position, Julian.
Amongst the Seanchan, yeah.
Anyway, Egeanin takes control of the room, orders everyone to pack. It's time to go, and pushes Matt even out of the way. But Oliver just is too stoked. He wants to ride Wind, but Matt gives him a quick no with a very long explanation to why he can't ride Wind. All about not noticing the boy with a fast horse leaving with the menagerie, because the whole plan here is to escape without notice. And Noel again pops out and shows his face in between disappearances. Then Matt groans all of a sudden. And why does he groan? Because the dice started clattering in his head.
Oh, yeah.
Again. And that's the end of that chapter. I milked it.
You really took a slow amble through that one.
It was great, though.
Anything you want to lob in there, Joe? I've got 4 points for this chapter, and one of them I've already lobbed out there, so it's going to be a good.
I can't remember if this is the chapter that it's in, but it's a scene where Matt is walking through those streets, and there are two of the circus performers fighting in the mud.
Yes.
And he goes, ooh, he notices it. And then Petra pulls them apart. He was like, but Petra pulled them both apart before Matt could even place a bet down. Like he wasn't going over to stop the fight. He was going to go bet on it.
I can't remember if it's in this chapter or not because I made that point in my honorable mentions favorite moments.
Yeah, that scene stuck with me.
It's like there's like a massive commotion, everything, but Matt is like, oh, couldn't even get to place a bet. Damn.
Yeah, Petra's too fast.
Nice one. Matt thinks of Cole, the horse handler, that he appears to be another without a full set of wits. He probably had a wife somewhere.
Yeah,
which is ironic because that's Matt's whole thing, right? Like he's going to have Tuon as a wife as well. Another one I had is that when someone said something, maybe it was Egeanin or something with the interaction with Julian, like Julian shoots them like a hard look or something, and Matt thinks to himself that Julian could match the waters when it came to hard. And I thought, this is actually a cool dynamic. Like Julian is acting like a warder for Amathera. And like his whole deal is about keeping her safe and everything. And he's actually like quite a badass. Like people write Julian off. He's a bit of like a comical character at times, but he's a real badass. And Matt recognizes that. He knows that. He's like, he's just like Jolene's warders that are, just like frowning at him all the time and stuff. He says Julian can match them for hard looks.
With that little funny hat of his and
his fizz. This with a hat.
And his bamboo staff.
So conical cap. But yeah, that's all from me.
Oh, there was one more thing. When he gets up to the tent and sees Olva playing Snakes and Foxes. And he tells Olva to go inside, and as he turns around and he comes back as an afterthought, and put on a coat. You're going to catch the death of cold.
Yes.
Yes, Dad.
And Egeanin actually smiles at Olva. Like Matt hasn't seen Egeanin smile at anyone ever, except not even Domon. But she smiles openly at Olva.
Yeah.
All right, let's move ahead then to chapter 3 called A Fan of Colors. Joe, I'm a fan of your summaries, so please give us one.
Oh, well, then you're in for a treat because I employed AI for the creation of the summary.
Excellent.
And yeah, I was like, last week was it all? During the week, I was sending you guys those screenshots and stuff. Yeah, I've been playing with it for the whole week. It's not very good. It's not as good as us. Some of the stuff that comes out is like a caricature of who I am, and I don't know if I should be offended or not.
Did you ask ChatGPT to create a chapter summary as Jody from Blood and Ashes podcast?
I did. Exactly that. So I fed it like our YouTube links and of course, the book 10 information and stuff, and it's not great, but you got to hear it at least once in your life, how it pretends to be me. So I'll just read it as it says. All right, folks, welcome back to another deep dive into Crossroads of Twilight. Today we're cracking open Chapter 3, A Fan of Colors, and oh boy, this one gives us a deeper look into Matt Cawthon's predicament as he continues his very delicate dance of deception in Seanchan-controlled Ebou Dar.
Okay.
Yeah, so grab your dice, pour yourself an ale, or a strong calf if you're on duty like the Red Arms, and let's break this chapter down in true Blood and Ashes style! ! So, Matt's still stuck in Ebou Dar. When we last left Matt, he was trying to orchestrate an escape from Ebou Dar with Tuon, the daughter of the Nine Moons, who he kidnapped, but also maybe not really because she's kind of going along with it. The whole situation is about as unstable as a drunk farmer on stilts, and Matt knows it. So at this point, Matt is laying low in Valan Luca's traveling show, and if you know anything about our boy Matt, you know that he is not exactly a fan of the whole circus act. But right now, it's the best shot at sneaking out of the city unnoticed. The problem? There are lots of eyes on him, and one wrong step could see him collared, executed, or worst of all, married to Tuon before he even understands what's happening. Enter Jolene and Tesla. Aes Sedai drama. This is not how I speak. Now.
No.
What's a Matt Cawthon chapter without some Aes Sedai headaches? This time, the trouble comes in the form of Jolene and Teslin, two Aes Sedai who have their own very different approaches to dealing with Matt. Jolene is arrogant and haughty, treating Matt like an annoying servant who just happens to be useful. She refuses to acknowledge that he's the bloody luckiest man alive, instead pushing him to doing what she wants. Teslin, on the other hand, has a more straightforward approach. She's been through hell, tortured and leashed as a demone, and she has a very different kind of respect for Matt. She's less manipulative than Jolene, but that doesn't mean she's not dangerous. Matt, of course, just wants nothing to do with Aes Sedai meddling, but fate has other plans. Is this kind of following along with what you got from this chapter?
No.
That is
But I read this
chapter.
chapter like more than a month ago.
Yeah. So basically, what happens in this chapter is he goes to meet Tuon, and she agrees to not
run
undermine him, not undermine him, not run away, not try to do anything. She calls him Toy. There's actually a thing here that this thing did for us was, first of all, there's the fact that she chooses to go along with Matt's plans, but never feels like a hostage. She's watching him and testing him and pushing his buttons in ways that makes Matt deeply uncomfortable. And there's the moment where she names Matt Toy. Now, if you're just casually reading, this might seem like Tuon just being playful or condescending, but there's something way bigger. Naming someone in Seanchan culture is a huge deal, and the fact that she's given Matt a name means something. Now, that kind of stuck out for me. I was like, oh, shit, I didn't see that.
No, me neither.
Yeah, so there's that naming, because in this very chapter, in the same time, he asks her how old she is. Because she looks like, and she tells him, like, I'm 14 from my true name day or something. And he was like, what?
Yeah.
14?
In 5 months, I'll be 14.
Oh,
so
yes.
she's 13 is what she says, yeah.
And then she's like, oh, no, you guys, you go from the actual moment of birth. Like, all right, then I'll be 20 the next month or something. He's like, oh, shit. Like, he was this close to thinking, here we go, she's too young to marry. No. Sorry, you're stuck.
I had a moment there where I was like, oh, no, RJ, come now, seriously, this is getting a little out of hand.
Spending too much time with George R.R. Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
like watch out, this is spilling over now.
Yeah.
So he gets into that tent, and the tension is palpable because. I'm jumping ahead. First of all, let's finish the Tuon chapter, or the Tuon part of it. When he starts calling her by her name, and she's not happy about it, she grabs a cup and throws it at Matt, and he just has to like throw himself on the ground. And then later on, he carries on talking to her, and she gets angry again, and then picks up a chamber pot. And Selusha has to get up and take it out of her hands, and she goes, no, we need this. You can't throw it. And Satel, a nun, without thinking, grabs a cup off the shelf behind her and goes, yeah, have one of these. We've got lots of them. And Matt's looking at her like, what the fuck?
And she looks like she's smiling.
She's
like
loving
she's grinning, like, yeah.
Because he keeps calling her Tuon by her name, and and you could Satel the nun's like, fool, like you're not learning. You're like, you got to treat this woman right. So yeah, she's already joined forces with Tuon against him. She's supposed to be the guard. He put her in there to guard them. But this is where they spit in their hands. She thinks it's a very earthy ritual that they have here on this side of the ocean. And they make the deal that she promises not to undermine him or run away or do anything. And that's when the dice stop rolling in his head. They stop rattling. And he's like, oh, God damn it. Here we go again. But he's interrupted by our man Tom. I don't know, we haven't talked about Tom in ages. But he's there. And he comes to call him and tell him what happened to a certain somebody in the palace. So that is where we find out that Tylan, I was going to say Teslin, Tylan has been killed by the golem. And this like shocks Matt. Like he falls down to the ground, like, his knees give out to him. And everybody kind of like, and then Satel the nun stops teasing him. She actually puts her hand on his face and tries to comfort him a bit, telling him nobody realized that he felt so strongly about her. But
not even him.
Yeah. And it was a bit of a shock to him. But yeah, so she was still tied up when they found her and her head was ripped off. So I don't know.
That'll do it.
Yeah. I had a different image in my mind about how she died, but I might be confusing it with other previous golem kills. And general carnage happened. But left her tied up. So Matt's, of course, now racked with even more guilt because he's the one that left her tied up. And so he takes on the responsibility. It's my fault that she's dead. So, add that to another list of regrets of women in Matt's life. So he leaves them, and then because there's a warder outside that wants his attention, that he must go and speak to Jolene.
Jolene's
calling. So he's like, no, I'll talk to her later. And he's like, no, you'll talk to her now. Come here, my friend. And takes him with and forces them to have a chat. When he walks into that, because now this is a very, very small tinker wagon. And he's got 6 of them in there. He's got 3 Suldam and 3 Aes Sedai. And it's
sitting across from each other.
Cats, like wild cats stuck in a box, just on the other side of each other, just staring. Is it Edicina is her name? I'm not even reading my notes at the moment. Yes. She's just stroking her belt knife, staring at them, and they just checking him out. So Jolene calls him over because she wants to tell him, like, listen, this plan we had of heading up to Lugard is a bad idea. We should not do it. We should go by boat to Ilion. So we have to go back to Ebou Dar, to the port, and get on a boat. He's like, oh, you're fucking crazy. That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. We're not going to do that. And he wants to know why. So she tells him, listen, she's feeling some stuff. All the channelers are feeling immense channeling going on, and it's coming from the north in the general direction of where they're going to go. Like, even if the whole cleansing of the source thing explained, like, even if the whole tower was channeling, I shouldn't be able to feel it, but everybody's feeling it. And that's putting them on edge as well. So it's got to be the Forsaken, and we got to go. And he's like, no, look, if it's that far away and we're traveling through this weather and mud, and later it's going to be snowy, it's going to be way over by the time we get anywhere near it. So we're not changing the plans. And that's basically it in this chapter. Yeah. So we know that the dice stopped rolling. We know he's got to deal with Tuon. We hear about the cleansing of the source, so we know, like, at this point now we're up to speed with what the end of the books was, at least with Matt's journey, before we jump over to someone else and start from a week ago again. All right.
Vil, anything to add?
Nah. It's, like I said, it's basically the start of a heist movie, like announcing all Frankie Four Fingers, Jimmy the Nail.
Yeah. Everyone gets a mention. Metwin. One of Matt's men, Metwin's boyish,
a lot of them.
His boyish face belies his age and his love of tavern brawls. It's in this chapter, Jody, where Matt, he knows that the dice means something important or dire, not just danger like he thought before. So he's learning along with the readers, like what the dice mean. It's also here where he tells Olva to put on a coat, like such a mom or dad line, like, put your coat on, it's cold. Even though Tom vouches for Domon, he said Tom vouches for Domon, because Tom was on that flight with the spray from Shadow Logoth, right, with Matt and Rand. But Matt doesn't really remember that. But Tom vouches for Domon. Matt is clever enough to remember that he and Egeanin have their own goals and that those might not always align. So he doesn't trust them. Like, he'll work with them for now, but he is, quite sharp in knowing that they're not working towards the same ends, which is great.
Yeah, I think he's quoted something like, they have their own plans, and keeping Matt's hide in one piece does not enter into them. It's not factor.
Yes, exactly. I thought it was interesting that Tuon has a similar issue about being perceived as young as what Nynaeve does. Like Tuon, she gets really worked up. It's like, you thought I was 13, didn't you? You actually would have believed that. I'm actually 19. I turned 20 in 5 months, you fucking idiot. But that's where I had that thought about, like, it was George R. Martin. I was just like Willie, also shocked by RJ. No, RJ, come on now. Matt notices about... what's Tuon's maid's name?
Selusha,
yeah. That she could look fierce for a lady's maid if she wanted to.
Watch out for Selusha.
When Matt is told that Jolene wants to see him and he has to go, Tuon's like, who's Jolene? Like, Matt goes, she almost sounded jealous.
Yeah.
She is already jealous.
Yeah.
And then when the dice stop, it's like, when they shook hands, Matt thinks to himself, what was Rand doing when the dice had stopped? Because he has that sort of like that blurred vision almost of where Rand is. But I think that's a red herring, right? Like, it's quite clearly like the moment it stops is when Tuon and he clasp hands.
Yes.
And Jolene is already sensing the channeling. All Rand is doing the moment that they're shaking hands is continuing to channel like he has been for probably a couple of hours already, right? Like it's from sun up to sundown he was doing that. So I think that's just an RJ red herring.
So was that in Tuon's wagon, not in the Aes Sedai wagon? Because there's one where he has the colors swirl and he can almost make out.
Maybe that wasn't Jolene's.
Sitting on the ground.
Could be in the Aes Sedai wagon.
That ability is becoming better and better, you know.
But the dice stopping was with Tuon.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. That's all from me. So we only have one more chapter to go. This was actually, this chapter coming up now, I thought was the most interesting one. It was like a nice little break from like all the storylines that we know, right? Like a nice little interlude. So let's get into it in chapter 4 called The Tale of a Doll. Vil, as the official doll of this podcast, please give us a recap.
I would take that title, claim it, make it my own. I am delicious. Oh, God. All right, Furyk. We're going to deal with Furyk a bit, I think, going forward. And I didn't want to read this like I deal with the White Cloaks, because there is actually a little bit of method and
respect,
intelligence behind. I would even go to that, and I'll explain myself. Anywho, Furyk is in the room in the inn. Now this was Sital and Nan's inn that she sold, and they all up and left. Rats have now pulled in. Like, standards have dropped really, really quickly. It's only been days. He's sitting at the writing table, and he's got a lot on his head. And there's also been a lot of rain. I don't know why I wrote that. Either which way, his mate Ajimbura is there. Ajimbura is a strange cat. He's a tribesperson of some sort. But he kills a rat with his knife as if it's nothing, but also keeps it because he's going to eat it later, and has to be told, like, don't do your weird eating things in front of the townsfolk. Causes havoc. But clearly, Ajimbara has got a skill set that is favored by a truth seeker, which Furyk is. Now,
Furyk is not a truth seeker.
Sorry, I got that wrong. Yes, Furyk is one of the Deathwatch.
Yes.
He's the Deathwatch Guard that specifically put out that he also always wanted to look after and take care of Tuon, which we'll learn throughout this chapter. Their purpose is to fight to the last, and in that, the protection of the high blood, or the, what are they? The emperor, empress, may she live forever.
There you go.
So these just a reminder that he runs through his head of their commitment, of what they're gonna do, like the level of service that the Deathwatch Guard rendered to the royal family. And his instructions is to find Tuon, and if he finds her dead, to find who killed her and see favor returned at the same time, which he muses on at this point. Without knocking, a slender man slipped into the room, and Furyk at this point had already thought of 2 ways to kill him, but waited, and he's happy he waited, because it gave him time to drop some ID on the table, his little card placket thing that announces him as a seeker of the truth. And he is he asks for the room, basically, to which Furyk agrees, and asks Ajimbara to go out back, eat his rat, don't get spotted. So he goes. Interestingly, on the table is a map of Tar Valon. Don't know if you picked up that little tidbit there. Now, we are now introduced to Almond Moore, the seeker for the truth. or of the truth. I'm not sure there. Both men introduce themselves and move over to a first name basis. Sort of, he wants to break the tension. He didn't do anything wrong. The seeker of the truth will come and do his job. He's nothing reason, he's got nothing to hide. So he gives himself that reminder and ease. News has arrived that there's a girl with a Shandar accent, heard talking about the daughter of the Nine Moons. This news has circulated through already. Furyk is aware of it as well. And if this is the case, someone is playing a very dangerous game, because the accent is not one easily what am I looking for? What's the word?
Faked or impersonated?
Mimicked, impersonated, because the people here don't know it. So that means that higher up there's some sort of game. So he's a bit of a thinker, this guy. Surath has been mentioned here to have been in a pretty foul mood. She has started killing people.
Seekers.
One a day until seekers.
She's killing a seeker a day until they find her.
And well, that she had to stop killing.
She was going to run out of them.
So that's
These dark friends are dumb, eh?
You can't kill all your policemen.
You can't kill all your problems away.
That way. Yes, exactly. Anyway, that then brings Almut to bring into question the loyalty that there is from Furyk's side. But Furyk is not having any of it. He pretty much stamps that down. Now, Ajimbura left his head cup.
His skull.
It's a very interesting item. His skull that he drinks out of behind. And Almut had spotted it, and he used it and asked if there's any more wine, and actually poured wine in that cup, the skull cup, for Furyk to drink out of. But that didn't sway him too much, because they had a drink to the Empress, and he proceeded. That's when the Seeker drops the sort of gazette on Furyk. Why he's there. And you just start taking an appreciation for good policeman, good detective work, when he goes down. And even Furyk's like, oh, wow, okay. I was suitably impressed by this. I felt like we had somebody being very competent in what they do that we're dealing with. We're not dealing with a slow trot. The company will advance. Or who's the other twat that's sent to go fight in Egeanin? The old Wyramon.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yes.
Yes, Wyramon. Anyway, a mention of the many wounds that was taken in the service of protecting Tuon was raised up. And also his own request and mentions of wanting to be in a personal guard. And that Tuon had once given Furyk her doll, links to the title, with the whole story of you protected her, now she'll protect you, and he still apparently has the doll. So maybe
it was destroyed in a
Furyk has
fire.
got a bit, or he had it until
He had it for 10
it
years.
was destroyed.
Yeah.
So Furyk painted as a loyal man. Right now we don't get Dark Friend vibes off him, nor do we really get off Almut more. He's a diligent inspector, not like the white cloaks. What are the questioners?
No.
Going to cut off your finger now, torture the truth that we want to hear out of you. Whereas this guy actually goes with facts and investigation, which is quite cool. Anyway, 3 requests, as I mentioned, was put in, and all of this is making him look like a suspect. Like, did you take the daughter? Did you infatuated? Like, we getting down to some normal bad men doing normal bad stuff, not magic bad stuff. Anyway, I noted here, the Seeker is on the job. I like him.
My note was that he's like,
pleased.
this is like classic media cop thinking, right? Like he's building a theory. Like this is like he's got a bunch of clues. He's building a narrative. He's mostly right. He's got a couple things wrong. Like he thinks Tom was sent by the White Tower, Tom Merlin, and he thinks Tom Merlin is a fake name, and like there's a couple of little missteps, but he's got the gist of it. Like Suroth collaborating with Aes Sedai, albeit Black Archer Aes Sedai. Suroth is up to something, but not exactly like he thinks it is. But he's drawn some very good connections between the Damane that have been stolen, the two Suldam.
2 Damane stolen. Both of them are previously Aes Sedai, and they go on the same night. Matt, who was Tylen's pet, disappeared, gone. Tylen dead under the bed the next day. Tom, fake name, gone, and he's on the radar now for the Seeker for a while because this guy is able to maneuver at the highest levels.
Yeah.
So he appears as a servant, but he can talk to kings and queens.
Which is correct.
He's not a servant, and which is spot on. Tom is ousted for how good he is. Yeah. And Furyk is kind of shook by all this knowledge, and that is not where the chapter ends, because I made a blank page error. Go to the next page of my notes.
Alrighty.
I thought, like, what?
Now it's time to sit and just think quietly upon what has happened thus far, and then we'll pick it up again.
So Furyk asks or states to him that he has come to him because the theory was rejected by his other bosses then. So kind of like, okay, he's put something forward of a bigger plot, but maybe up at COP headquarters it wasn't well received, and it's kind of acknowledged by more. But so Furyk himself is also quite showing depth, understanding of the situation. But what is becoming clear is that Suroth's plotting with Aes Sedai, and there was warnings of looking for high blood that is over ambitious in the new lands.
That was Karede's mission. He was sent to Falme with High Lord Turak to specifically keep an eye out for any blood that looked like they might have any ambitions to establish their own rule until the rest of the Seanchan come.
Anyway, they then scull their drinks to the health of the Empress.
Literally.
And out of the skull, I was going to say like a skull drink. Anyway, Furyk then, after old mate Skull Wine left, Jimba, his rat-fed man, returns, and he asked him if he knows any of this, to which Jimba says no, he doesn't. Anyway, he gets time to think about it. So the next day at the harbor, there's a plump-faced woman with Furyk on a ferry, and they are cruising and setting off now to the Ilian Road, and still at a casual trot. He just keeps going past the Rahad, a couple of long hours, olive farms, and merchant trains that pass him. So he is well and truly leaving in a different direction. Furyk. By the afternoon, he finds a Jumba on the side of the road playing some kind of flute, where he is then taken off the road with, and am I correct in saying that the Seeker's with him?
No, he's not.
He's not with him. And on the other side of the forest, about a half a mile in, we have a force, including Ogier gardeners and soldiers ready to move. First to their hearts, they all acknowledge Furyk when he arrives. The Ogiers are a bit upset because they've got no target and they've got no real direction. Like, how is this going to play out? And then Furyk starts laying out his plans, and that's how the chapter ends.
Yeah, he's got quite a force with him. Soldiers, Damane, Suldam, Ogier.
Yeah. 4 Damane, 4 Suldam, I think. Or extra Suldam.
One of the Damane is Mylan, who used to be an Aes Sedai.
The one who's completely
flipped.
Broken. Yeah.
The Sildam even grins when she says, when she gets her hands on these Aes Sedai, we'll have to step in to stop the woman from being too battered to be leashed. Like Mylan is so into Tuon. Because remember Mylan, when she was captured, she went on a hunger strike, and Tuon sort of brought her back to quote unquote sanity and sort of like turned her into this real subservient pet that is super eager to please Tuon. So this Aes Sedai, Damane, is eager to lay hands on the Aes Sedai that captured Tuon, or that kidnapped Tuon, in their estimation anyway. Super creepy. Awful. Terrible. Hate it.
Yes, as is usual with the Seanchan.
Yeah. Hate it. Yes, so Jody, anything you wanted to say about Furyk Karede?
Dude is around for a long time. Like, keep an eye on him. He's there at the last battle. He survives the last battle.
Yeah.
He gets into a whole bunch of other shit along the way.
I'm with you, Vil. I also respect him. He obviously, the way he handles himself in this meeting. Now, a seeker is obviously someone that obviously has a lot of power over people. We saw Egeanin's reaction to him, to Elmarat Moore, and they can do all kinds of stuff. Like you said, the KGB, like they make people disappear and stuff all the time. But Karede is not intimidated by this guy at all. In fact, Elmarat Moore at one point is sweating profusely because Karede is intimidating him. You can see Elmarat Moore standing at the fireplace, and he's in a position where he can throw the cup at Karede. And Karede's already clocked this, and he says he can already sense, okay, yeah, he's got a knife in the small of his back under his cloak, and probably at least another knife on him. Like Karede's like read him completely and sees everything he's doing and is manipulated. Like he cuts right through the subterfuge and stuff, and he tells him, all right, so you've taken the story to your superiors. They've either rejected it or you are too afraid to take it to them. Why have you come to me? What are you saying to me? And then he lays out this story about, like, in the days since Tylan's death, there's been rumors of this small or this diminutive Seanchan woman speaking with a Siandar accent, trying to extort gold from merchants in the city. And toward the end of his little yarn, he goes, you might wonder how this woman would be extorting merchants. And she's always accompanied by men with very specific descriptions. And he reaches over to Karede's cloak and he says, some people might think this is black, but it's just really dark green, if you catch my drift. Like, so he's implying that Tuon with Deathwatch guards is going around trying to extort gold from merchants and stuff, and this has started since the death of Tylan. So we know, can't be Tuon, she's not around. I'm wondering, what the fuck is this? Is this a complete fabrication that the Seeker had started to, because this is what spurs Karede into action. He doesn't have orders to go look for her or anything like that. It's this information that the Seeker has brought him with this idea of this like grand conspiracy from Suroth that he's like, okay, cool. Now I need to go do something.
Could that not be
Semirog?
Semirog, yeah.
Yes.
Is this what she's doing? Yeah.
Maybe this is why she's not coming to meetings and stuff anymore. Like she's maybe just busy now, like acting as Tuon, because we know that later she does. When she meets with Rand, she's posing as Tuon with a illusion. So yeah, it was an interesting mechanism, like this whole like idea that they'd be what does Semirog need with gold, right? Like she doesn't need any gold. So is she just planting these seeds to sort of discredit Tuon or something along those lines? Does she have her own plan?
Well, that is the thing that it is. It's making her to be common and a thief, extorting merchants for money.
Yeah.
It's painting better, and he, Furyk, that is a super Tuon groupie.
Yes.
But
why would Semirog be doing that?
Fix this. To hide traces that she's disappeared under her watch.
This is a very weird way, because Tuon is not visible anywhere else. She's just visible to these non-Seanchan merchants that she's trying to extort. Like, you're saying like she started this rumor to make it seem like Tuon is still around, but she's still absent from everything else?
Being rogue, yeah. She's run off being rogue with Deathwatch Guard soldiers.
Karede is not convinced that this is not Tuon doing it on purpose herself. He recounts at least 2 other times where Tuon's There's been a number of attempts to kidnap or kill Tuon, right? Starting with the day she was born, right? So like a brand new infant, people are already trying to kill her. So he's super dedicated to her, and that's what we respect him for. Or, I mean, I'm speaking for myself and Willie. I'm assuming, Joe, that you've got some level of respect for his prowess and his loyalty as well, right? He says, "My honor is loyalty." He mentions 2 other times where everyone thought Tuon was dead to the point that they were arranging her funeral. And in those 2 instances, both by her own contrivance. Like Tuon had made it look like she was kidnapped or killed for whatever reason. So at this point, he doesn't know whether Tuon has actually done this herself or not. Which, to some degree, she has, because she's been very compliant and going with Matt and stuff, right? So he's not wrong, but he knows that whether she did it herself or not, he has to go find her. It's just this mechanism of this rumor that I found to be strange. I don't know if it's Semirog trying to get exactly this rumor out there, or is Semirog acting as Tuon for other ends to other ends? Don't know. But yeah, I dig Karede. He's 42 years old. He's the guy that stabs that other officer, Jadranka, in the throat when the Altaran Hills. In the attack from the Ashaman and stuff, he's there when Lord Yulan takes over from Kenar Mirage, the Minaj, or whatever his surname was, the Keshav Maharaj. When he's killed in that battle outside of Ebou Dar, Yulan takes over, and Karede is there as well and participating. The Seeker here, Willie, says to Karede, "I know that you're involved with High Lord or Lord Yulan's plans," and that ties in with the plan of the map of Tarvalon on his desk. Yulan is the one that is sent to do the raid on the White Tower, and that's when Karede says, "We don't speak of this. The more a thing is spoken about, the more likely it is found out by people that are not supposed to know about it." We've actually read about Karede at the Wandering Woman when Egeanin and Doman rock up, and Matt is in the kitchen and he makes up with Jolene to sort of call, like, Egeanin and Doman are like demanding rooms at the Wandering Woman, and Satal's like, well, maybe like Banner General Karede is also here. I don't know how a Captain of the Green, compares to a Banner General. Maybe take it up with him. And at one point, he and Matt almost walk into each other as Matt is walking out of the inn. So like. They've literally crossed paths before, which is pretty cool. And you're right, like we're going to read about him a bunch. Like he's very active. He confirms here when he thinks about the Seanchan opinion is like it's only been a little while since the Aes Sedai revealed their weapon north of Ebou Dar, which was the Unraveling Gateway. That one Raken flyer survived and flew back to report on. So they think that the Aes Sedai have this big weapon that they can deploy at any time. They're talking about the death of 10,000 tears. They say that if Suroth is exposed to as a traitor, she would be suffering the death of 10,000 tears. Do you guys remember what that is?
No, but I'd love for you to tell us. Because
she's of the blood.
Tell me of this pain.
Because she's of the blood, they're not allowed to actually spill her blood. So she can't be executed by decapitation or anything like that. This is also not the strangling cord that we've also read about before. The death of 10,000 tears is the Seanchan member of the blood is put in a silk sack and hung from a specific tower and just left there until the sack rots away. Like just not fed or anything. You're just tied up in a sack until you completely decompose. That's the death of 10,000 tears.
Damn.
These fucking guys, man.
They're so rough. What else did we have? Oh, I was just commenting or complimenting more on his cop thinking. Like he builds this big theory, and he even says at one point there's a third Damane that was with them that was not actually from the kennels. It could be an Aes Sedai that was hiding out in the city. It was Jolene. So he's like spot on with a couple of things like that. And then my very, very final note was just that this is where he thinks, okay, cool, they've got a 10-day head start on us, but it's not. It's actually just a 4-day head start. Now, when you're speaking to Moore, there's this rumor or this concept that they would be traveling to Jahana, which he says would not be the case because that's the obvious plant, right? So Jahana is also up in Mirandi, right? so in the general direction of Lugard, where Valan Luca's circus is traveling. So by not going towards Johanna, Joe, can you consult your map? Are they sort of in the same direction?
Johanna and Lugard, they are on the same latitude, but they are quite. One is Johanna is due north of Ebou Dar, and Lugard is due north of Ilion.
So
they're on the same line. Like,
okay, so if you sort of, he talks here about like the sort of the cone that they have to comb with these troops that he has. He says to them, we're going to have to spread out, but very thinly, right? Like we're going to have to leave small gaps between us, and we are going to have to survey this entire area to try and match up with them.
It's a big area.
It is, if you include all the ground between Ebou Dar and Johanna and Lugard, but they're only 4 days out, so it's actually much shorter. Joe's holding the map up to the screen.
There's Johanna there, and there's Lugard there. That's a massive.
Oh yes, okay, cool. So Johanna is. Johanna's in Gildan, not in Mirundi. Okay, cool. Right, so that's basically the area that they have to work in.
Everyone else just has to, who's listening, just has to imagine the map I held up.
It's available. Okay, cool. Ajimbura. This is an interesting cat. I want to know more about him and his flute playing and his skull cup and his
this wild man
rat eating. Yeah, he refers to Karede as High One. But yeah, that's it. Those are all my notes, and those are our 4 chapters for this episode. So did you guys remember to pick a favorite moment?
I actually did. But
Jody.
I already said them. So I've got like an honorable mention that I had to look up in the book. That one where Matt couldn't place a bet on the two guys fighting.
Was that your favorite moment?
Seanchan the nun gives the cup to... No, there's another one that I'll read. I put my glasses on. Hang on. Where they're talking about where everyone's got dressed up. They're all in their disguises. Mistress Anand didn't put on anything, and they put Selusha in the dress, talking about Selusha. And she disliked the dark blue Ebou Dar dress she had been given, claiming the deep neckline was indecent, but it hid her as effectively as a mask. Few men who glimpsed Selusha's impressive bosom would be able to focus long on her face. Come on.
Okay.
The one right after that is Matt might have enjoyed the view for a moment or two himself, but then Tuon was in the room, so... He's like trying to keep his eyes off her bosom while talking to her.
Just a red-blooded male.
Yeah. So Matt inside that place with Selusha, the interaction with Tuon, and with Seanchan the nun.
Very good.
That whole little interaction there, I liked a lot.
I mean, that overlaps with my honorable mentions in a very significant way as well.
Bills?
What you got, Vil?
No, I've got slim pickings. I mean, okay, there's some Matt moments. I'll let you guys have that. And just go out to the old Almot Moor. Investigation. Almurat Moor. His true detective styles, setting up a bit of a court case chapter. Building
the case, yes.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean,
let's see if it gets better.
Suroth is eventually outed as a dark friend and stuff, and she does get her come up, and so I can't wait for that. Mine is also a Matt moment in that chapter where Matt and Egeanin are both captains, like they're trying to both take charge. Domon is talking to Matt and basically imploring him to just listen to Egeanin, because he says to him, you're a farmer. I know you're a good man in a tight spot. When he says, by the way, that he says to Matt, you're a farmer, Egeanin shoots him like a dirty look, like, what? You set me up with a farmer. But he says, I know you're good in a tight spot, but you have no knowledge of command. And Matt's only response is, more than you might think. Literally the most in the entire world. Like, nobody in the world has more experience at command than Matt does. And I just thought that was such a, like, he doesn't even like try and make the point or something like, I might know something. It's just like, well, more than you might think, and then lets it go. That's great. And then also my honorable mention was Karede making the Seeker uncomfortable. Like he mentions at one point, like sweat, like dripping from his forehead. And it was so cool to see the Seeker in that position because he's usually the one pressuring, Betham and Egeanin and everyone else.
Oh, yeah, he's got a boot on his neck, that Seeker. So, tables have turned a bit.
The shoe or the boot is on the other foot?
Exactly that.
So to our listeners, send us your favorite moments, your theories, corrections, answers to our many questions, or just say hello. You can do so following the links to our social media accounts in the episode description below. One of those links is to our website where you can leave a voice message which we can play on the show, or even just buy a t-shirt. After you've done that, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. And when all of that is completed, you can start preparing for next time on Blood and Ashes, where we will cover 4 more chapters. Chapter 5, The Forging of a Hammer. Chapter 6 is The Scent of a Dream. Chapter 7 is Blacksmith's Puzzle. And Chapter 8 is Whirlpools of Color. One guess as to who we're reading about in those chapters.
Elida.
Pain.
Yes. Clearly.
Yeah, it's cool. Like, it just worked out. Like, the first 4 chapters here, Matt, Ebou Dar, Karede, Seanchan. Next episode, Perrin and his.
Oh,
his
it's
blood.
it's Matt break up with a Seanchan episode, and then back into a Perrin, and I suppose we'll have some break and then into Rand.
Are we trudging in the snow? Trudging in the snow.
How much snow trudging is there, Moritz?
Guys, so little.
All right.
It is like this blacksmith's puzzle. Okay, spoiler alert, everyone, on a spoiler cast. Blacksmith's puzzle is they've already found the town in which the Shido are, where they're going to save Fahil from. And Perrin's puzzle is how to get her out of the town. It's over like this. Book 9, we thought was going to be all trudging through the snow. It's just the cover of the book and the first couple chapters, and you never read about Perrin again. Here, a couple, he's found it. Malden, there it is. You know, about the water source, the aqueducts, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's already happening. Yeah.
What? Anyway.
Hey, isn't that amazing?
Yes.
Doesn't that?
Why is this in my brain as such a big thing?
I know. It's because when we were younger, all we wanted to read about was Rand and Matt kicking ass. And it was
more sex igloos, but there wasn't.
No.
All right.
Okay, so that's all for our next episode. And until we meet for that episode, I will say to all of you, sleep well and wake.
Cheers, everyone.
Do that.